Hey, Odies, welcome back to the CSUSB Advising Podcast. It's me, Matt Markin from Advising and Academic Services. It's been a while. I've missed you. In our last episode, we were talking about getting ready for the spring 2022 semester and clearing holds, seeing your advisor and getting registered. It's now after finals for the fall semester, and I hope you did well and passed all your classes. I also hope you enjoyed the fall semester, especially if you were able to actually have some of your classes on campus. I know for me, it's great being back and actually seeing students and staff and faculty on campus again. Although the one thing I didn't enjoy was the long lines at Starbucks. I guess nothing changes there. We all want our coffee, but it's all right. For fall semester grades, they are available either now or at least by December 16th. And now that it's after finals, December 13th represents the late registration period. I hope you were able to register before the 13th. But you can still make changes to your schedule through your MyCoyote account all the way through the first week of the spring semester, which starts January 24th for regular classes. And if you're taking a class during the winter intercession, classes begin December 17th and ends January 19th. So I got a special guest for you today, and that is my dear friend and academic success coordinator, Ellie Gault, also from Advising Academic Services. Ellie has worked at CSUSB for a number of years, working not only in advising, but also in the office of the registrar, and for a time at Cal State Channel Islands. Ellie is a wealth of knowledge, and I think Ellie's story can really connect with you. So Ellie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Matt. I'm super excited to be here. It really is an honor to be on one of Matt's podcasts, so this is exciting. And hello to all of our Yodis, and I share Matt's sentiments that I hope the term went well for you, and that we are so happy to see you guys back on campus. It really is nice. And I have not ventured the Starbucks line, but it sounds like it was a good idea. I didn't.
And if any of you catch this, the video version of this on YouTube, let me just change the visual on here. I had it on a different podcast. So now we have it on the correct one. So Ellie, I'd like to start out with, what do you do within Advising and Academic Services?
Sure. So part of my role is, or the two main things I would say in my role is that I work with our orientation office, and I handle more so the logistical and kind of background pieces for advising for all of our orientations, both transfer and first year freshmen, that is. So we currently do orientation twice a year, both now in spring and for the fall term. So that's a big part of what I do. I also oversee our academic probation program. So that might sound a little scary to some and a little bit like, oh, wow, like who wants to do that? But, I think that us serving our students who are on academic probation, as well as our first year freshmen, our undeclared, our pledge students, it's really actually, it sounds odd, but a fun population to work with, because we really get to be there for those students, because what we know is it's not ability. It's often circumstances that you all are dealing with that puts you into a position of having some challenges. So those are the two main things that I do. And then I get to meet with all kinds of students, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, so in a way, it's almost like our office. We get to meet with almost probably at some point every single student on campus.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And for you, like, what was your path getting into higher ed and into academic advising?
Well, I will try not to be too long-winded, but when I was in college, I decided I wanted to work in a higher ed. I actually wanted to really work in student life. I was very involved in student life when I was in college. I worked for my sorority after college, and so my natural path was, I'm going to go work in student life, and that's what I'll do, and it'll be very exciting. So when I started out on this path, and I think that this is going to speak to some of you who are either graduating soon, just graduated, or graduating in a couple of years. So once I was done with that 1-year position after I graduated with my sorority, I started to apply to schools to work in student life. And it was not working out. I was not getting interviews. I was just not getting anywhere. So then I just said, okay, I just really want to work in higher ed, whatever that means. And so then I went that direction. And the very first interview I got was here at Cal State San Bernardino. And I got that job, and it was in admissions, and which is actually how I met Matt the first time. But so I got that job in admissions. And honestly, from there, I really just kept being open to opportunity and taking opportunity when I saw it. And so started out in admissions. Matt mentioned I worked for a couple of years at Cal State Channel Islands. I feel like it was a brief stint in my time because I always say, I hope it doesn't look this way, but I've been in the CSU system for about 20 years, pretty much all of it here at Cal State San Bernardino. But so started my career here in the admissions office, left, went to Channel Islands, really enjoyed that experience, and then decided to come back to our area and had the opportunity to work in the office of the registrar here at Cal State. And then the next opportunity came up, and that next opportunity happened to be with the Jack H. Brown College of Business and Public Administration as an academic advisor. And then 7 years later, this opportunity came up. So, really it started with this idea of I want to work in student life and I want to work in higher education. I then had to change that to, I just want to work in higher education. And I will say, as much as I love student life, and those who know me and those who hear me talk about the experience of college, you will hear me say, go get involved, whatever that means for you. And I do feel very passionate about that. But I think the stars aligned correctly. And I think it worked out the way it was supposed to. So that's how it started. And that's how I ended up here. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful journey.
That's awesome. And then kind of talking about education, like you have earned both your bachelor's and master's degrees. And I always think it's nice to know, like, for listeners, what were those specific programs that you pursued and why did you pursue it?
Sure. So I am the only person I think in our office right now that did not graduate from Cal State San Bernardino. So that's always kind of the office joke. Though I feel like I am very much a Yodi, having spent so much of my time here, because I started here when I was relatively young. So I really very much feel like I am a Yodi. But so when I went to college, I went to Sonoma State, and I started in what is their version of a liberal studies program. And after the first 2 years, I had decided I did not want to become a teacher. And I have 2 older sisters. So I called one of them who went to a different university and just said, I don't know what to do with myself. I want to graduate in 4 years. And she said, go become a sociology major. You'll like it. You'll graduate in 4 years. Now, how my sister ever knew I'd graduate in 4 years, I don't know. She wasn't an academic advisor. She was just a student at her school. But sociology was her major. And I guess given that we're siblings, she knew I'd like it. So that's what I did. And again, my path was I'm going to work in higher ed. So at the time, I was more so focused on picking a major that would get me out in the time frame that I wanted. And I wanted that time frame because I knew the first thing I wanted to do after college was go and take this 1-year position with my sorority. So that's how I ended up in sociology. And then I do have a master's. As Matt knows, that was a long journey getting there. So I graduated in 2000 from my undergraduate degree, and I did a program at San Diego State in the 2019-2020 academic year as a Master's of Arts in Educational Counseling. So it was about a 19-year difference between my undergraduate and my graduate. So for me, I took that time because my focus was just other places. So my focus was getting my feet on the ground here in my career here. And the opportunities continued to come despite not having the master's. But it was also really important to me that I did a master's that mattered to me, and I didn't do a master's to do a master's. And that was very important to me. The other piece of it was, and this is just being real raw, is I'm terrified of school. I might work at a university. I love higher ed. I think that, higher ed is a great place to go, and it's a great place to be a student. I encourage people to do that. But if you tell me to go take a class and go write a paper, that's really scary to me. Taking a test is really scary to me. All these years later, it's really scary to me. And so honestly, I just wasn't confident. It's an insecurity of mine. And so that's part of why it took me so long to be willing to do it. And it was really the encouragement of my friends like Matt here and others here, my family that said, like, go do it. So I think a big part of it for me was I wanted to do it in something that I cared about and not just something. And for me, I think it just took a while to really know what that was going to be. But once I finally did it, it was also partially to see, could I do it? Could I actually get through this thing? And I did. I don't know. I'm not any more confident in school. I would still be a little afraid if you told me to go take a test or go write a paper. But I did it. And a big reason was so that I could prove to myself, like, no, you can do this too.
Yeah. And I think a lot of students probably can relate to this. And if anything, it's just knowing that students listening, we're all human. And even now, yes, me too. Like if it's like, go take this test, do I need to, like, what I need to study for? How do I prep for it? Yeah, it takes time. And you kind of, through your story, you're kind of answering in terms of like, I think students can take from this like certain advice in terms of like, should I do a higher degree after I graduate? Why should I do it? But is there any other tips you might have for students that might be unsure? Like, do I want to do a master's degree? Should I do it? Can I do it? Any other advice you have for them?
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's certain professions you're going to go into that a master's degree, you do need it. Like it's non-negotiable, you need it. But there's lots of professions you can go into where you don't necessarily need it right away. I also feel very strongly that, except for the professions in which like you do need to go get that in order to move forward, I do think students should know that, at least for me, in my opinion, many master's degree programs, they're not just about being taught something. And I think that that's a difference that I see in many programs is when you're an undergraduate student, you need to participate in your education, but you're more so being taught. And when you're in a graduate program, it's more, in my view, an exchange of ideas. It's a conversation. So yes, you're being taught. Yes, your instructors are bringing knowledge to you. But I think that most of those instructors are also expecting you to engage in that knowledge. And so I think that if you have some experience behind you, I think that's really helpful. I also think a lot of students don't necessarily know what they want to do with their life, right? And that's another big whole conversation. But I also don't want a student to necessarily jump into a master's program just because they don't know what they want to do. So I would say don't rush unless you're going into a field in which I have to have this master's, or it will make a significant difference to that first step after college. I would say give yourself some time. Give yourself some time. I know when I worked in the College of Business, I had a lot of students that would say, I want to do my master's right away because I want to just keep going. I don't want to get out of the habit of school. And I absolutely understand that. But you also want that program to really do for you what you want it to do for you. And sometimes we don't know. And so I think giving it time when you can is a good idea.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fantastic advice. So thank you for that. And speaking of giving advice, it's after finals at this point for the fall semester. And, our spring semester doesn't start, until towards the latter end of January. So do you have any advice on if there's anything, and this course, like generally speaking, anything students could or should do while they're on their winter break before coming back for the spring semester?
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely take time for yourself, take time for your family, take time to enjoy the holidays, however that is that you celebrate it. And I would say give yourself that time, but then, maybe like a week or two before we start school, start to organize your mind and start to do however you organize, right? Like some of us, like I love a planner. Give me a good planner. I'll buy 10 of them a year. Like I love planners. I love making lists. Everyone who knows me, I love 5 different colors of pens on one piece of paper to help me organize. But however it is you organize, and sometimes if you're a personality that you're like, I'm not an organized person, there is a way in which you organize. You may just not do it in that traditional way. So start to get your mindset, start to get your mind right about the fact that you're going back to school. Because just like Matt and I, if we go on vacation for a little bit, it's like, oh, okay, we got to go back to work. And okay, so we got to get geared up to do that. So prep yourself for that. Once you have access to your Canvas, I'm not sure if we're still having Blackboard in spring, to be honest, but whether it's Canvas or Blackboard, whatever the learning management system is that your class work is on, see if your professor has posted the syllabus. If they have, start to take a look at that. Make sure that you have your books ready. If you are the type of personality or you would like to push yourself to become this way, get that syllabus, start to write in your calendar, whether that's your phone, whether that's an actual paper calendar, something on your desktop or your laptop or whatnot. Start to put in those deadline dates so you can really start to see what's going to be expected of you. If you have an early class or whatnot, maybe start to set your alarm, right? So if you like to sleep in and you're like, oh, and I know this is a true thing after a long vacation, right? You're like, I got to get up. I got to, get dressed. I got to, maybe start to set your alarm and things like that. So just get your mind and your body kind of in gear for that. But make sure that you, give some time to yourself, that you give some time to your family and friends or whomever it is that's important in your life. And then get yourself geared up mentally, physically, emotionally, maybe financially. If you're like, I go to that Starbucks line a lot, like maybe prep for that too. But yeah, so take time for yourself, but don't wait until your first day of class to kind of put yourself in a school mindset.
Yeah, because we definitely don't want students to get burnt out. So perfect advice with like taking time for yourself and just in a way, you just even celebrate the fact that you finished the fall semester, through
Absolutely.
everything that has happened.
Yes. Oh my
this
gosh.
time. Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that. And I would say, maybe to add on to that, if you had a great semester, celebrate it. If you had a tough semester, celebrate it. Because regardless of how you came out of it, you came out of it. You got to the other side of it. And really do celebrate that, because it's not always about what grade you got. It's sometimes just about the journey of these 15 weeks that got you here. And don't forget that we are here. We are here. So as much as I would love to say we get an entire month plus off like you guys do, we don't, but we are very grateful for the time that we do get off. So we are out of the office between basically December 23rd or starting December 23rd. I think if we get our informal time off from the governor. But we will be back the first business day of January. So I know I've been telling a lot of our students that we're meeting with, if you come up with something you need to talk about between finals and before we go out on our holiday break or after we come back, but before we start the term, we're here. So use us. Like we do have plenty of stuff to do at our desk, but our goal is always to help and support you guys. So don't feel like, oh, the school hasn't started, so I can't contact Matt or Ellie. No, contact us. We're around.
Awesome. And then, so there might be some students going, well, that's great, but I'm going to be one taking the winter intercession, and I'm taking a class during the winter, and it's a 3-week class. What was I thinking? So do you have any advice for students who are like just getting prepared, or how to balance being on winter break, but maybe also taking this winter intercession course?
Yeah. So first I'll pray for you. No, I'm just kidding. But, I would say it's 3 weeks. It's really, really quick. And so, everyone doing the winter intercession is doing it for their own particular reasons, but it's still going to be sometimes hard to get yourself in the mindset of these 3 weeks. So keep remembering it's 3 weeks. It's just 3 weeks. The other thing I would say is, especially depending on your living situation, so we do have the holidays and stuff right now. So maybe make sure that those that are around you, whether it's who you physically live with or who you spend most of your time with, make sure they understand, I am actually taking a course. It's really intense. It's really, really short. So sometimes we might need to say, can you help limit my distractions, right? So maybe don't ask me to go out every night, or, yes, I want to participate in this or that, but I can't because I need to study. So definitely participate in your regular traditions that you and your loved ones do to celebrate the holiday. But just also let them know, like, hey, this time around, this particular break, I may not be as available to do the things that I really, really want to do. But no, I'm in school. So if you see me not doing what I need to do, check up on me, right? Call me out on it, but also maybe let them know like, hey, maybe don't provide so many distractions. And then just remember, it's just 3 weeks. You can do anything for 3 weeks. You really, really can. It'll go by really quickly.
Yeah, but I like that you put about like maybe having that accountability person to be like, keep me in check, make sure I'm doing what I said I was going to do.
Yes, absolutely.
And, we've had some students actually graduate mid-year. So we had
Woo!
some our fall graduates, which is awesome. And they got to
Mhm.
finally have
Yes.
their first in-person commencement post-pandemic. Well, I guess
Yes.
still in, I don't know, weird place that we're in.
Yeah.
But any advice that you have for recent graduates as they navigate this world as an undergraduate anymore? They
Yeah.
didn't have to register for undergrad classes for spring. Is there anything they could or you think
Yeah.
should be doing?
Well, first, congratulations, right? Absolutely. And I had the pleasure when I was an advisor in College of Business to actually help coordinate the commencement ceremony on top of the college. I mean, we have a whole office that does it, but every college has people who help with their particular college ceremony. So also know that, be thankful when you're at that ceremony, be thankful to all those people, because there is a lot of work that goes to putting on those ceremonies. And I will say I do miss that aspect of my old position to a degree anyway, because it was always such an exciting time of the year. And, I can cry over lots of things because I'm just a crier, but I will say it was always such a special moment at commencement when we would get to that point of, at the very end of throwing the cap and the music, but even before that. And so not just a shout out to our first gen students. I mean, this is a shout out to everybody, but there was always a really special moment where the president would say, stand if you're a first generation student. And I could cry now because it was just always the most impactful thing to see, like, wow, you all did it. And you didn't necessarily have the example before you. So really relish those moments. It is really exciting, and it is well-deserved. So, but navigating after you graduate is the weirdest feeling. Matt and I have both experienced it, and we can both say it is a weird feeling because our entire lives, from the time we are, about 5 or 6 years old until however old you are when you graduate, you're always in school. You're always in school, and to all of a sudden not have that one part, even if you work full time now, you have, all these other commitments. The fact that school is no longer there, it is kind of a void. You get over it, but it is weird at first. But I would also just say, reach for your goals, reach high, but also know we all have to start somewhere. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean to settle, but it also means like, be realistic about what those next things are that you're going to do. So I think when we graduate, we always have, some of us have expectations and some of us don't. But if you have that expectation of, well, I'm going to go make a 6-figure income my first year, I hope you do. That's amazing. But also know that like you might have to do some other stuff first, right? Mm-hmm. So I would just say, be open. Be open to everything. One of the questions that I cringe when I ask our students this, but it just sometimes comes out, and it's the question we've all dealt with our entire college career, right? And even beforehand, what are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do? I mean, when that question starts really early on in our lives, mm-hmm. and it's hard to get away from that. But here's what you need to know, whether you're at the very beginning of your journey here, in the middle, or you just graduated. You don't know. You have ideas, go with those ideas. But life will happen. An opportunity presents itself. And things will happen sometimes that take you off the path you thought you were going to be on. But those aren't always bad things. So just be open. Be as open as possible, even if maybe the next thing presenting itself to you in terms of a career or whatnot doesn't look like the picture in your mind. Mm-hmm. Just be open to it. And I think that if you are open to those opportunities that come to you, you land where you should. And I think that if you ask a lot of us who are really happy with what we do, and not just here as advisors, because I think we're really lucky in the world of higher education to work with students because we have the ability to be so impactful. But I think if you talk to a lot of people in your life, and I often give this suggestion as I'm working with students, if you're not sure what you quote unquote want to do, go talk to the people who seem really happy about what they're doing. And not so that you can go do what they do, but so you can learn from how did you get there? How did you end up in this position? And I think with a lot of people, you're going to find out that they were just open to opportunity, even if that opportunity looked different than what they thought it was going to be. And I think that many of us, and my story is similar to this, though I still ended up in higher education, I thought, no, I got to work with student life. That's my jam, right? Like, that's where I'm going to be. And I think, like, I'm so thankful that that's not what it is. Not because it's not great to work in student life. It's fantastic to work in student life. But I just really think I ended up where I should be. And I just really think, based on my own personal experience and observation, those of us who end up in a career or position in which we're really happy, it didn't always come from when I was born or when I was 5 or when I was in junior high or when I got to college. I knew what I wanted to do. We all know those people that did. And we need those people in the world too. But most of us don't. And you got through these years here, you're on your next step. Be open, be flexible, and enjoy the ride. And don't try and plan out your life from now to retirement, from now until you're no longer here, right? Because you can. You can. So, but enjoy the ride as you go.
Yeah, that's perfectly said. And even just enjoying that journey of the whole process, not the end result, but the process of how you got there. But Ellie, this was fascinating. I think a lot of great nuggets of information that students, listeners will be able to get from this episode and from your interview. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. I so appreciate you, Matt. And just a shout out to Matt. I don't know how many of you Yodis know that this is just the coolest thing that we have him doing this. And this is not something every advising office on every campus in the world has. It certainly is not. I mean, I know we're not the only ones, but I think that we are very fortunate to have somebody like Matt and have Matt specifically lead this for us and make this available to you all. So I hope you all appreciate him as much as we do. And so thank you, Matt.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I did not pay Ellie to say any of that.
He did not. He did not. But acknowledgement should go where it should. And so definitely, no, we are very lucky to have Matt Markin on this campus.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And that does it for our last episode of 2021. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow us on our social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at CSUSB Advising. Check back in January for a brand new episode of the CSUSB Advising Podcast. Happy holidays, Happy New Year, and see you in 2022. Go Yotes!